it's a little after 7. Can we stand for a moment of silence and a pledge to the flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Casares?
Here.
Ms. Dorr? Ms. Dorr? Ms. Ferguson? Here. Mr. Hagan?
Here.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Ms. Lentz? Here. Mr. Marburger?
Here.
Ms. Lorenzo? Here. Ms. White? Here. 8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. We had a closed session prior to tonight's meeting, and we're going to have another one afterwards, both legal and personnel. No, what date was? Yeah, we had Wednesday. We had a closed session. What date was that? It was the 8th. Thursday. Sorry, Thursday yesterday. Board reports. Mr. Marburger, do you have a board report for Thursday?
Last Thursday, we began with a preliminary budget meeting. Went over the preliminary figures. It's roughly $122,000 increase in the budget. Mars' share will drop somewhat just due to the fact of the 3-year average attendance is how they calculate the share of the budget, and just the calculations where other school districts' enrollment has went up, ours has virtually stayed flat, and so our amount will be a little bit lower. It's like I said, they will present to the full board next month for our approval. All 7 school districts have to approve the budget at that time. Also, like I said, whenever calling it preliminary, there's like 3 items in the budget that our business manager actually will not know numbers for till April or May, but we have to have the budget approved by April, so it's presented to the local school districts to put into their line items. So it's just like a guessing game, but generally she's pretty good at from past years' experience. And then we went on to the regular meeting. Really was not, just went through approving paying of the bills and a few personnel items. And that was the conclusion of the meeting for the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marburger. Foundation reports. Kevin, you have some?
Yeah, a couple items. One, Christine Valente has a couple updates for the Walker Margins Fellow, and one after that.
Okay, so Marty the Merchant is here again this evening to join us. Just a quick reminder about Walk Around Mars. The registration for that opens on February 17th. T-shirt pickup remains March 24th. And the walk itself runs from March 29th through May 30th. I've been out speaking with the community businesses. We've had a great response from our local businesses in supporting this event. Latest donors and sponsors this week are Agway, who has always been a huge supporter of the Mars Plant Foundation, Mars Brew House, and Finn Chiropractic. So we thank all of them as well as the rest of the sponsors who have already signed up. And I look forward to hearing from so many other folks that I have spoken with already about sponsoring this event. Quick updates on the dinner to go. The Spello dinner to go, family dinner to go, last date to order that meal is Sunday, February 14th. The pickup is Thursday, February 17th from 4 to 7. So I did taste that meal. It was outstanding. If you like lasagna, you like that food, please get online or call the restaurant and place your order. I promise you won't be disappointed. And we actually have a local restaurant committed to the March dinner to go, which is Farmhouse Cafe, which someone sent an email in based on last week's meeting recommending them. So I met with Justice Zimmerman. He's got an outstanding family style chicken kind of meal ready to go. We're fine tuning the dates around that. Looks like it'll be mid to third week of March. So great stuff happening on this front.
We also have an update. I'm excited to announce there'll be a new scholarship this year that the foundation will be administering, and Megan Lenz is going to talk about that.
So we have a new scholarship, the Kimberly Young Memorial Scholarship, and it will be awarded to a graduating Mars senior female student who's going into education. Kimberly Young is one of the best people I've ever known, one of my best friends, and she went to college for special education. And so we want to try to help a child who's interested in doing that. If you're interested in donating to help continue the legacy of Kimberly and the positivity she brought everywhere she goes, you can go to the MarsPlanetFoundation.org website, and you can either send in a check and put in the memo line that it's for the Kimberly Young Memorial Scholarship, or you can donate online and there's a box that put that it's for this particular scholarship. And the deadline to apply for that is April 15th. And most of the scholarships for the Planet Foundation, the deadline is April 15th. So parents who are listening, get online and get your kids to apply for these scholarships. They're great. Last year somebody got $12,000. That's a lot of money that's sitting there. So write your essay.
Thanks, Mike. That's it. Foundation will meet next week, and I have 2 teacher grants to review, so looking forward to that.
Thank you. We are going to change. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to student council. Is there anyone from student council here this evening? Is there anyone from student council?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Patricio Beltran, and I'm a senior at the high school. On behalf of the student council, I have 2 things to share today. Firstly, this year's PASC Spring Conference is being held virtually through Seneca Valley, and student council members will have the opportunity to sign up for virtual sessions and present their own leadership workup. Secondly, activity period meetings are tentatively scheduled to begin soon, and we are hopeful to have a chance to meet as a group soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your report. It's good to hear from the student council. We are going to change the agenda up a little bit this evening. You have Mr. Graff here from MAEA, and we'd like to give them some time to speak. We also have Tom Brett that will speak. So, Mr. Graff.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. I am Joe Graff. I'm a middle school teacher at Mars. I teach math. I also happen to work with technology and curriculum. And Mr. Kennedy and the board invited me to come here tonight to speak in advance of public comments, basically to talk about the ongoing negotiations. So I appreciate the additional time at the onset. I look forward to our comments at the end, and Mrs. Lipnicki always, who does great work and has great things to say. We are fortunate to work in a great community. I'm very proud of our educational staff and the work that they have done to this point this year. It is an extremely difficult time for everybody. There's not an easy answer for any of this. I don't envy Dr. Gross's job. I do not envy this board's job, and I'm sure they do not envy mine. But we are committed to working toward a fair settlement. All parties involved, as best as possible. We'd like to handle those negotiations in private. But I can tell you that, and I've spoken to our membership, and I'll say to all of you that are here publicly, it is not personal. There is obviously a difference of opinion, a disagreement on numbers, but the hope is that a settlement is reached that does not impact education. And to this point, I want to applaud our educators for doing the best that they possibly can do in the face of truly an unprecedented year. Given the contract situation, COVID, the unique situation with relearning a job, I applaud all of them. I applaud I applaud the students, and I applaud the families as well. I know it's a difficult time for everybody. So with that, I thank you. I know Mr. Breath has some comments too, but I would ask that any public remarks, and certainly anything from the teachers, they be geared toward issues, not people. So thank you.
Mr. Breath is Zoom tonight, so, do you want to give us an update and report?
Certainly, Mr. Kennedy. Good evening, board members, administrators. Let me start by echoing Mr. Graff's comments with respect to the difficulties that everybody's faced through this process. The parties began negotiations in January last year. Our last bargaining session prior to the pandemic was actually March 12th. Obviously, with the pandemic, there was a time period the parties didn't meet. They resumed negotiations shortly after the start of school. Last night's session was the 15th session that the parties have had face-to-face. That session lasted about 7 hours. The parties left about 12:30 a.m. So it was a very long session of going back and forth. I can tell you that many times in negotiations, the public rhetoric doesn't accurately reflect the tenure of the negotiations. At all times, in my opinion, the teachers have been extremely respectful and professional. I believe the board members have reciprocated, been respectful and professional. There is a difference of an agreement. There are differing perspectives and priorities at the bargaining table. But the parties have truly, in my opinion, worked very, very hard to try to find common ground here. I'm going to review just briefly some of the issues. There has been a tremendous amount of progress made on some of the issues from both sides. The issues that are still open, the term, and the board's proposals at 4 years, the teachers at 5 years. Quite honestly, I think the board would like to have a 5th year, but the economics have to work out for the district. So the parties are very close in the term. The retirement incentive for the post-employment health care that's in the current contract. The board has always, I think, had the understanding that at least in the early parts of this contract, they're not going to have the financial resources to provide the teachers what the teachers feel they're entitled to. So in an effort to minimize some of those issues, they've offered to maintain the status quo with the retirement incentive, which currently is at 8 years of post-employment health care. They've offered to leave that unchanged for the term of the agreement as an effort to compromise on a total package. Likewise, the health care. The board has traditionally, when you're doing labor negotiations, particularly with school districts that have the ability to change their healthcare plans, the healthcare changes are always a very difficult sticking point in the negotiations. Once again, understanding that there were financial limitations to the board's ability in the early parts of the years, the board has offered to maintain the current healthcare plan, including the contribution limits that the district makes into the employee's health savings account, to leave those steady and unchanged for the term of the agreement. There's been progress. The association made it clear at the bargaining table that planning period was a significant issue. There are teachers in the elementary buildings that lose their planning periods due to a number of reasons. So there's been extensive discussion on that. They made it very clear that that was one of their top priorities. The parties haven't reached a final or tentative agreement on that, but they're getting closer. The only holdup on that issue of paying teachers some compensation above their salary if they lose their planning period, quite honestly, is the wage component of this. And I'll talk about wages a little bit later, but that's the third or the final issue that's really the major issues that the parties haven't been able to resolve. The parties are very close, although they haven't signed tentative agreements, on tuition assistance, which is increasing the financial assistance the district pays to teachers that further their education. The current contract is at $1,900. The board has agreed to move that up to $2,400 per year. In exchange, the board asked for a reimbursement schedule if a teacher receives tuition assistance and leaves the district. The parties have reached an agreement on that, although we haven't formally signed a tentative agreement. Postseason compensation, playoff pay, if you would. The current contract provides that for coaches, but does not provide it to other advisors or sponsors that take students to what would be the equivalent of an athletic playoff. For example, many of the students that participate in music-related competitions go to regionals, states, and nationals, and their advisors and the teachers that work with those students accompany them to those competitions. Currently, there's no compensation for those individuals. The board has agreed that those individuals should be included in what's currently referred to as postseason play compensation for athletic events. So although parties have had many productive discussions on that, we believe that they're in agreement. We just need to finalize that part of the final deal. The other issue is with respect to the LSI and an LSI advisory committee. The teachers asked that they be given an opportunity to give significant input, meaningful input into future decisions with respect to LSI. The superintendent is a big supporter of that. The board is also. So the parties have discussed and are working on the framework for an LSI advisory committee that the teachers would have representation on, the administration have representation on. They would help formulate and consult with the superintendent, who would make recommendations to the board of school directors regarding LSI. Ultimately, the decision would have to be the board of school directors, but the teachers would have a very significant voice in that process. And then there's actually 3 issues that the parties have actually signed off on as formal tentative agreements. With respect to wages, there are a number of factors that the board has taken into consideration. As everybody knows, this past school year, COVID really hit when the school districts were formalizing their budget for the current school year 2021. When the budget was set up, the school district budgeted $1.1 million for cyber tuition, which is a tremendous amount of money to be paying for cyber tuition. When COVID hit, many students that were enrolled in the Mars Area School District went to cyber programs. Many students that weren't enrolled in the Mars Area School District but attended other private or parochial schools within the school district, they were residents of the school district, went to cyber programs. The business office did a calculation, and they estimated that the 1.1 million would be closer to 2.5 million this year. That leaves a $1 million to $1.5 million deficit in the budget. As we sit here this evening, as of the end of January, the school district has paid cyber school tuition in the amount of almost 1.5 million, 1.482 million. So almost $1.5 million. So as we sit here today, if the school district made no other cyber payments, none, they would still have a $400,000 deficit in their tuition. They're on pace, as the business office has projected, to do 2.5 to 2.6 million in cyber school tuition. Obviously, labor unrest does not help to attract those cyber students back to the school district. Both parties understand that and acknowledge that. It adds to the urgency of getting this agreement done. Historically, the district has looked at, and the parties have had extensive discussions about prior raises and the teachers' expectations with respect to what they believe would be a fair agreement moving forward. I looked at some of the numbers that the teachers have put together, and over the past 2 contracts, I look back 10 years, teacher raises over that time period have been about 3.35% on average. During those time periods, there's been significant changes to the healthcare plan that's provided to the teachers as well as the other employees in the district. Those changes have resulted in cost reductions and stabilization to the district's healthcare. There have been concessions with respect to the work days, the number of work days the teachers have contractually each year. A number of concessions with respect to the early retirement incentive during that time period. So from the board's perspective, they understand that the wages may not be where the teachers would like them to be. Going back to one of my initial points, that's why they have not asked for concessions for the early retirement or the health care, because they've really focused on, and from the board's perspective, the key to getting this contract done is for the parties to work out mutually acceptable salary increases. Last night's session, there were several proposals sent back and forth in responses between the parties. The school district has posted those on the school district's website so that the public can see the last proposal that was exchanged between each side last night. That's written in a format, particularly with respect to wages, that we hope the public's going to be able to review and understand. Obviously, the board welcomes any questions with respect to any of the issues contained within there. The board has looked at other school districts in evaluating its compensation, not only wages, but also the overall compensation structure that's provided. Of note, there are 7 school districts in Butler County. The Mars Area School District's salary, and we look at the master's column primarily, the top of the master's column. So most teachers are on the master's column. So a matrix of looking at the compensation is, what are your master's teachers, your most senior master teachers paid in Butler County? The Mars Area School District is second in the county. The only school district that they're behind is the Seneca Valley School District. It's number 1 in the county. The board has also evaluated information out of the Midwest Intermediate Unit 4, which is the IU that the school district participates in. That covers school districts in Butler County, Lawrence County, and Mercer County. There are 26. Of those 26 school districts, looking at the masters, the highest paid master's column teachers, once again, of those 26 school districts, Mars Area School District is 3rd. They are only behind Seneca Valley, that is 2nd, and the Newcastle School District in Lawrence County, that is 1st. So it is 3rd in that intermediate unit. They've also taken a look at other school districts. Many of the discussions that we've had, there's been reference to other school districts, some of which are in Allegheny County. Of significance, and this is where it's important to take a look at their entire compensation structure, because some of the school districts referenced, although their salary schedules may be slightly higher than the Mars Area School District, if you look and see what their healthcare plans look like and whether they have an early retirement incentive, any kind of post-employment healthcare, most of the districts with higher salary schedules don't have a retirement incentive. And there's been discussion at the bargaining table to say, listen, how those 8 years or up to 8 years of post-employment healthcare gets funded is through retirements and the replacement of those retirements at a lower wage scale, at least on the salary steps, so that frees up money that can go to pay for that post-employment healthcare. Finally, I just want to note that these are very difficult times and for both sides. There's an enormous amount of pressure on the teachers as well as the board members to come to a deal. A strike is a very, very detrimental thing to the educational process for a school district. Both sides, I truly believe, are sincerely working to find a compromise. They're trying to do it in a respectful manner. The board members and administration, including myself as solicitor, probably don't do it enough, but there is a tremendous amount of respect for the teachers, the job that they've done in under the most difficult times this year, the parents and the students that have also rolled their sleeves up and dealt with difficult situations. Everybody wants to avoid a strike. There's been significant discussion. There have been significant comments privately as well as publicly to express the desire to avoid a strike. One of the options that was discussed with the board in executive session prior to this evening's meeting was the possibility of going to fact finding. Fact findings available to the parties at various times. We're still within the window where it's permitted. Fact finding is basically making a request to the Pennsylvania Labor Relations Board through the Bureau of Mediation and asking them to appoint an independent, neutral third party to come in and meet with the parties, receive presentations from the parties with respect to the issues, to ask questions, talk to the parties with respect to all of the outstanding issues, and then issue a report that contains recommendations on the settlement of the contract. That contract report would then go back, or that report would then go back to both sides. The board would have to vote on it, the teachers would have to vote on it. If it's approved, it becomes the basis for the new collective bargaining agreement. It's a process that is used countless times throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in both school district labor issues as well as other types of public employee labor issues. So they've directed me tomorrow to make the request, notify Brooke Witt that we're making the request as a means to avoid a strike. We will still be willing to continue to bargain for the sessions that we have scheduled, and then proceed to fact finding. It's an opportunity for the parties to gain the assistance of a third party neutral person that neither party selects. The Department of Labor selects it, and hopefully could result in a resolution of this contract negotiations without the parties going through a strike. So I'll notify Brooke Witt of that. We'll ask the teachers to join us in that request. Ask them to then withdraw their strike notice. We'll continue to bargain, and if we're able to resolve it through the bargaining process before fact finding, that's terrific. If not, we'll proceed to fact finding, and you could utilize that alternative method of hopefully leading us to a new contract for the Morris Area School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brett. I know you have other obligations this evening, but could you stay through public comment section for us in case there's any questions?
Certainly, I'll be happy to stay, and I'm going to probably turn off my video, but I'll be here if there are any questions. I'm happy to answer the questions from the board.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Grace, did you want to talk about policies?
Sure, yeah, if I could talk, two things real quick. Public comment, I just want to try to get a pulse on how folks are feeling. With public comment, I think at some past meetings, some folks are frustrated because we're getting questions we're not answering, and it may seem like we're being a little awkward, and it is a little awkward sometimes. Public comment is typically for just that, comment. It's not that we're afraid of the questions, just sometimes we don't have what we have readily available to us in front of us. So please don't be offended. If we get any questions during public comment, and if it's something that can quickly be answered, we'll do that. If we don't answer, please don't be offended. It may be that we don't have readily available in front of us what we think we can articulate back to make sure that it's accurate. But what we're going to start doing, we're trying to be proactive because we don't want people to be upset thinking we're just like being standoffish. That is really not the case. What we're going to start doing is we'll answer what we can, but if it's an elongated answer, if it's an answer that requires more in-depth discussion or more in-depth research into that in order to make sure it's accurate, we are going to be scripting behind the scenes. Just, I know Ms. Lenz graciously agreed to do that tonight. If there's things we're not answering, we're going to try to keep track, and then we'll go back afterwards and see if there's common themes and try to get some communication out through the website to try to answer those things. We just sort of sensed that our last couple of meetings, it seemed somewhat awkward at times, and it really don't want to. There's enough stress right now, as we talked about. There's enough things going on. We don't want to make it look to the community like we're not trying to openly answer questions. There's just sometimes the questions are either too deep, or we don't really have readily in front of us what we would need to accurately answer. But the easy questions, if we can answer, we'll do that. So just don't want to offend anyone. So it's typically for just comment. Before we get into public comment this evening, I wanted to talk to the community and also the board. The school wellness policy, if you look on the agenda that is scheduled to be put on 30-day review, I'm going to ask the board to table that. I'll take credit for not doing probably a good enough job in explaining that prior to that getting out there. The explanation last week was one example, and I think the example turned into a negative connotation of what we're trying to do with that wellness policy. What that wellness policy does right now, the reason we would like to table it, we'd like to go back in and create some new language that sort of is more clear. So we apologize for the confusion, and we apologize probably for the only example given. Right now, the wellness policy explicitly guarantees, pretty much guarantees every child will get a recess. And obviously, as you know, it's common sense, for lack of a better term, that students need recess. Everybody needs time to de-escalate, debrief, breathe, that social emotional connection, all those things. The goal of the district was never to say, we want to take away recess to do other things. What we're trying to do is actually protect the staff, which would include administrators, teachers, counselors, whomever. Whenever you explicitly state something and it doesn't happen, and if it's in policy, you have to answer to that. So we never want to take recess from students unless it's absolutely necessary. So I guess my commentary to the community and the board would be, we were just simply trying to change semantics so it wasn't so explicitly guaranteed. For example, I can give you just quick examples. Someone is upset, they need to see a counselor. A counselor is talking to them and it goes through recess time. That's not complicating or compromising the counselor in that situation. A principal may be dealing with a disciplinary issue or any type of issue with a student. Recess may come, recess may go. We just don't want to compromise ourselves by explicitly stating it's guaranteed. The intent is absolutely not to taketh away recess. That was really not the issue. So it's more of it's a protectionary action on the district's case. I don't think we did a good job of articulating that, and I don't think we did a very good job of doing anything of striking that language. So I do understand the community's perception. And I would just simply say to the community, if you're happy with how we've done recess, if you're a teacher or a community member or an administrator, if you're happy with how we've conducted ourselves with recess over the past several years, we're not looking to change protocol at all. We're going to keep doing what we're doing and we're not fixating on it. But we're just basically saying we need language in there that doesn't explicitly guarantee it, because any given day, there may be a situation where a child may be needed to be pulled aside, to be de-escalated, talked to, whatever, helped academically. That was really the intent. So for lack of continuing on, that really was it. Apologize for the confusion. I want to scrap that. I'm going to ask the board's support of that. Let's just table that policy, give us a chance to go back, reword that paragraph so it's a little more clear. Because again, I don't think the examples used clearly articulated the reasons that we were looking at that policy. We just don't want to be handcuffed by an absolute guarantee. So with that being said, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Kennedy, for the...
Thank you, Dr. Gross. So we'll come across the policies later on in the agenda. This evening's public comment. The board and Dr. Gross, we've decided to change it up a little bit this evening. Typically, we give the first public comment for agenda items only. This evening, we're going to give 1 full hour for public comment. It can be about agenda items if you prefer, or negotiation questions that we can answer. Mr. Brown is here for any of those questions. Again, if we don't have the answer this evening, we will do our best to post it on the website under the question and answer page on our website. I did have 2 people sign up prior to speak for public comment. Heather Raybold was the first person. Correct. Yeah. We're gonna have an hour now, and it's gonna be a hard stop at 8:40. So just so everyone knows, we will go to 8:40. It'll be the same rules as usual. It's 3 minutes. It's just we're changing up. Instead of just being agenda items, it could be agenda or negotiations. So is Heather Raybold, is she available? She signed up?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Thank you. Can you just say your name and address?
Yeah, sure. It's Heather Raybold, 604 Valencia Road, Mars, Pennsylvania, 16046.
Thank you.
Yep,
You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I just want to say, Dr. Gross, thank you for acknowledging the challenges with the comment on the public comment piece. I appreciate that. So I was planning to speak to agenda item number 8 on programs. And obviously, programs are a significant piece to a child's education experience, and it gets very little attention during these board meetings each month, if any at all. So since it's evident that the board wishes to have more transparency by doing things like posting the proposed teacher negotiated contracts, I am suggesting that each month there is a program overview that conducted by district employees to share more about the programs that Mars offers. This will help to educate parents and possibly even reduce the number of right-to-know requests. I recommend starting in February that the first program to be reviewed would be on the system-wide implementation of a multi-tiered system of support for struggling kids that's required by every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. One learns very little from the brief half-page description on the website, and that does not even explain the tiered process or evidence-based strategies that Mars has implemented. I also didn't see anything about supporting Tier 3 students in math, and I'm sure there's at least a few struggling math students in the district. So providing us with information on this important program can also help reduce the rumors, such as special education teachers providing Tier 3 services to students that aren't special ed students, or minimal access to evidence-based programs for Tier 3 students, few, if any, universal screeners, no Tier 3 services at the high school, little to no progress monitoring being conducted, let alone analyzed in PLC meetings. So in a 5 to 10 minute presentation, all of those rumors could be squashed. And after that month's presentation, the transparency can be continued with a program overview in March by the Special Education Department. It would be beneficial if parents and key stakeholders could better understand the referral process for special education when their child isn't making the gains needed with the MTSS. Also, time to update the parents on the extension that was given by the state on the district's corrective action plan from the last comprehensive monitoring, and what steps Mars is taking to resolve that once and for all. I'd be more than happy to send you a list of programs to add for the other months too, such as positive behavior interventions and supports, because based when I looked on the district's website, it's pretty much non-existent. And you were almost about to approve a policy that would go against PBIS with allowing things like removing of recess. I do really appreciate that Dr. Gross spoke to that, because it is a little bit evident that the district leaders in Mars are greatly behind times with their education philosophy. So I'm really hoping that once Dr. Gross has the opportunity to get past COVID, that he can begin to change that. So I look forward to a presentation next month on MTSS. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Have a great evening. We will try to address that. I had one other person to sign up, Lisa Kay, to sign up for public comment early. Is Lisa Kay there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can. You just give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Lisa Kampfner, 3063 Humboldt Place in Valencia. Almost 19 years ago, my family chose to move to Butler County and into the Mars Area School District. Why did we do that? Because Butler County had lower taxes, and the Mars School District was one of the best schools in Butler County. I didn't move into the school district because they weren't raising taxes. Raising taxes should be more of a norm and not an exception. I moved to the district because people couldn't say enough positive things about the school and its teachers. And now, having gone through the district and my daughter being a senior this year, I have to agree. Mars really does have amazing teachers. They really care about the students and want what's best for them. The only way to continue having a top school that people want to move into the area for is to have excellent teachers and program offerings, not cutting programs or replacing teachers when they leave or retire. This year, all the teachers have had to perform double duty. Not only are they teaching in class, they have to navigate teaching the kids online doing LSI. That's a lot to ask of the teachers, and they've stepped up to the plate and knocked it out of the park. I know at the high school there are teachers who were put into classes that they hadn't taught before. And for many of them, it was a last minute decision right before the school year started. I give them all kudos for doing a great job and continuing to give these students as normal of a year as they can. It saddens me that the board decided to make negotiations public. It angers me that the board has pretty much called the teachers liars in the first statement that was posted on the website last week. The solicitor said on television that the teachers have unrealistic expectations on wages. How is it unrealistic when we are one of the wealthiest districts in the area but are near the bottom in wages for teachers? It is unacceptable to think our teachers don't deserve a competitive salary to comparable schools in the area. The initial proposal posted to the website was done so at the same time, if not before, the teachers negotiating committee received it. Why wasn't this presented to the teachers the night before during negotiations? It took the teachers to say they would strike to even get something presented. I and many of the people within this community stand behind and support our teachers 100%. Please consider doing what you need to do to have successful negotiating sessions so we can continue to retain our wonderful teachers. Thank you to all of the Mars teachers for all you do. And a great big thank you to all the teachers my daughter has had the last 13 years. I appreciate the impact you've had in helping my daughter become who she is today. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment this evening. Is there anyone else who wishes to do public comment at this time? Is there anyone else who wants to do public comment at this time?
Hello, I'm Jennifer Miller. I'm at 402 Browns Hill Road, Valencia.
Thank you.
I just want to comment on the concept of planning time. Maybe for anyone who's watching or listening and not understanding what that is for teachers. Teachers need time to collaborate, communicate with their colleagues in order to provide quality education for our children. I am very disheartened to understand, I believe I have it understood correctly, that in the primary center, special area classes have been cut pretty significantly. So the experience that my daughter had just 4 years ago, where she had specials like art, PE, and library during kindergarten, first grade, I understand that my incoming kindergarten child will not have those, which means that the teachers for my incoming kindergarten student don't have that time to collaborate and communicate with their colleagues in order to provide excellent quality education. We're just talking about a common planning time where teachers are able to coordinate and have time to communicate with families, to communicate with their colleagues. And I just don't understand why it's okay to not have that time put into a teacher's schedule in order to do the quality work that we know happens at Mars. And I can't imagine primary area teachers without a single 30-minute break away from those students in order to gather what they need for the day. So if there's any comment on that, I would appreciate it.
I guess I can comment as a former educator and principal and administrator. I think we agree. The planning time is very, very important. And I arrived in July, so obviously we're taking a close look at, and this is absent the negotiations process, what we need to do with the elementary schedule to make that better. Because that's been a common theme since I've gotten here. I even sat with some teachers earlier in the year to try to figure out and even offered, hey, if you can find out a way to help us do that under the existing structures, we'll definitely take a look at it. I think it has to do with the structure of the schedule, and that needs to be looked at very closely. And I know I'm aware of that as a superintendent, and I've conveyed that with teachers, I know Mr. Graff sitting to my left. You know, I understand the importance of planning time, and right now it's just it's a scheduling issue, with the way that schedule is currently built. And I don't have an S on my chest to say I'm going to come in and fix that, but I think we can, with more folks involved, taking a look at it, at least find ways to make that better. So I just want everyone to know, I don't think that the lack of the prep time is an intentional thing. It's a fallout of the schedule. And that'll be the task that we'll have to take on as administrators, actually quite soon, sooner than later. And we are going to seek some teacher input into that because there's ideas out there that we may not see. So we're going to take a look at that. I agree with a lot of the comments you made about the importance of it.
I'm glad to hear that. My own son teacher called me yesterday after play to discuss that concern I have. I think you know her over the weekend. And I think you have a good point too about working together to come up with solutions.
Yeah. The current schedule just it compromises some things. So we'll take a look at that.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you, Dr. Gross, for responding. So anybody else on public comment at this point? Right. Looks like Greg, you'll be up.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
you can.
Just first off, thank you again. I know Board Appreciation Month was last month.
I don't want to cut you off, Greg, but I need your name and your.
I'm sorry. I figure you guys would know it by now, right?
No, it's my fault.
No, it's fine. Greg Mason, 206 Cups Drive, Valencia, Pennsylvania, 16059. Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, I don't envy any of the positions you guys are in. I appreciate all you do. I know sometimes it may not sound like that, but I really do. You know, I think just like you guys, want what's best for our community, and I hope we all keep that in mind in terms of why you ran, why you're in the position you are. What is best for this community should be our guiding question, and actually even before that, what is best for our children should be the guiding question for our educational leaders. With that being said, the way that there's a couple things here. The way the public comment session can go, the way I read it whenever you guys approved it back in the fall, was it would be a total of 60 minutes. So for instance, tonight, if we only use 20 minutes in the first session, this 40 minutes then, could it be a possibility for the second part of public comment? Is that something you guys can answer or can answer in the future?
We are allotting an hour now. If we don't get through it, we may have some extra time at the end. We will have to see how much time we use.
Okay, and second, it's really hard still to hear you guys. I have to every night. I have two brand new laptops that have pretty good speakers, and I have to connect to a Bluetooth speaker to hear you guys. So usually I have no problem hearing Dr. Gross and the people who call in, but pretty much everybody else, you guys are really hard to hear. I hope you guys can figure out multiple microphones maybe, or pass a microphone around. It is really difficult to hear you guys.
That is a concern we've passed on multitude times. We're limited on the speakers that we have in this kind of a setting.
We did a big ceiling round in the high school library, but Greg, I guess you're saying that even in those meetings, you're having a tough time?
Yeah, and I don't think I'm alone with that. And like I said,
Okay.
I tried on 3 different laptops that are all less than a year old, and I still have issues.
Okay.
Thank you. That would help transparency. That's why I have a lot of times I'm asking you guys to repeat things because I couldn't hear it the first time. Last thing is when, K through 8, is there any world language offerings in terms of, I love what Heather said about, looking at curriculum kind of, and I know we've cut curriculum leaders in the school and the department. I started looking at the curriculum. There seems to be a lot of things that Mars does not offer that schools of this size typically do. Is there a plan to offer K through 8 world language? And or can you look into that, I guess, if you're not going to answer?
At this time, it hasn't come before me to look at that.
All right, that's fine. And then along those lines, I hope you guys, since Megan apparently is going to start writing down some questions we've had before, can look into maybe doing caps on activity fees, and then also support for MTSS. Again, we kind of pay lip service to some of this stuff, it seems, and not really do a lot with it, in my humble opinion. Last thing, I brought it up before, the cafeterias. Have we figured out how to space out students more with again, with regards to COVID?
I can say I know I have some principals behind me. We met administratively prior to coming back, and I knew what the answer would be. We're about maxed out on as far apart as we can feasibly get with our feeble minds. So, yeah, I mean, that's just a very open answer. It's about as good as we can find it right now in all the buildings.
And then last thing, again, I hope we all try to keep in mind why we're here. Our one-to-one initiative, and this has to do kind of with the fees. We're putting pretty much the students are paying for these, whether they bring them in themselves from home or they rent from the school. Is there any plan in the future to maybe go K through 12 one-to-one, like a true one-to-one, where they have to pay for insurance and as they should, but maybe reduce the fees or make them a little bit more attainable for people who may not qualify for free or reduced lunch?
I think it's a good question. I think it warrants consideration because I don't want to speak for the board, but it's certainly a hot topic right now. I had an email from a mother today in the elementary that was worried about her child not being able to access, and they're sort of heartbreaking when you hear those stories. So not going to make promises I can't keep, but I think it needs to be openly discussed on, as you know, with this COVID environment and technologies and access is very important. And those without, sometimes are left without, and that's certainly not what we want. It's heartbreaking. So hopefully get creative, try to find a way to do a better job of making sure everybody has access. I know when we typically shut down, especially in the elementaries, we deploy everything off of our carts. But sometimes with a real quick shutdown or a real quick quarantine, students don't have that opportunity because for various reasons. Sometimes it's socioeconomics, they can't get in here. So definitely a topic we need to consider. Like I said, I'm not going to make promises you can't keep because I haven't really had open discussions with the board. But even in a budgetary crisis like we're in right now, I think, possibly looking at other funding sources through grants, things like that. So if we can get them, we'll get them. And then if we can, we'll build the parameters around that to deploy that.
Thank you so much. I know my time's about up. I appreciate you showing the empathy there, Dr. Gross, for some of the families in this area. Remember, it is a diverse area, and I hope we can do what's right for our students in the future. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm going to add, I think it goes to say, too, that how do we handle a situation like that? We pretty much, reassured the parent that, it's not the child's fault. It's easy for us to say, kid wants to get to work and they can't. Just reassured them they're not in trouble. The teachers will work with them when they get back. There's certainly no punitive measures in place academically or any other way for kids that cannot access. But we want to make a level playing field here soon, so hopefully bear with us.
Thank you, Greg, for your public comment. Is anyone else who would like to do public comment at this point? Julia, if you can say your name and your address.
Yeah, hi. Julia Kanitsky, 2006 Maxwell Lane in Mars. I just had a quick question regarding the agenda this evening. It's about approving the minutes. In the minutes that were posted, let me go back. There were regarding the January 12th, approve the settlement and general release agreement with IKM Inc. I just wanted to know, IKM was the architect company that was brought in. I remember going to those meetings for the middle school, and I was just wondering what the settlement and general release agreement was and how much it's for. Our plans are still on their website, and obviously we didn't do that. So can you explain what that was and maybe the amount? Because especially in a time where we're talking about money, I just was curious if you can answer that.
I don't know if Tom's on the line, but it's not. It was a dispute over payment of some fees for services for IKM. Tom Bress was involved in getting that resolved. I don't recall what the amount was. Do any of the board members? Pardon? Yeah, $90,000.
That's pretty significant. So we basically paid them for work they didn't do?
No, that's not it at all.
Okay,
Lots of issues that were involved, but it wasn't paying them for work they didn't do.
So
okay.
Mike, I'm sorry, I'm on if somebody would like me to respond.
Yes, it
If
should.
you need anything further, Tom, go ahead.
Right, Tom?
Absolutely, it was, under Dr. Shipley when he was the superintendent. They had done some work, an invoice was paid, at Dr. Shipley's direction. They felt that they were entitled to additional compensation. So a dispute arose, with respect to the appropriate compensation that IKM was, entitled to. When the decision was made not to proceed with any project due to the cost. So the parties went to mediation, and we mediated a resolution of the dispute that avoided the cost of litigation on both parties. So it was a compromise with respect to an invoice. Their invoice was significantly higher than the amount that was paid to resolve it. But you're right, it's not an insignificant amount of money, and the board took it very seriously and negotiated what they felt was a reasonable compromise to the disputed invoices.
Thank you, Tom, for that.
You're welcome, thank you.
Can I ask one more question about the finances, John?
Sure.
I was just wondering, I noticed that we were going to get more ESSER funds. I think it was about, I can't remember offhand, about $500,000 with the COVID relief funding that just came out for the school district. Of course, it's based on our Title I, which we're not a Title I school, but would that be enough to, I thought I heard Tom say something like it was a $400,000 shortfall for the teachers to come in a contract. Would that be enough to cover what the teachers are asking for, or more than enough if we apply those funds towards the teachers? Or can that not be done?
Our business committee is not here this evening to answer which way that's funded. Tom may be able to.
Can Tom give a brief concept to that, Tom? Whatever you say, I don't want to say something
No, that's fine. And I think the question was the 400,000. There was a deficit. There was a deficit as we sit here today in what was budgeted for cyber school tuition and what the district has paid. Part of the discussion we're having with the teachers is the compounding impact of the wage increases. I wish we were only $400,000 apart in wages. I feel confident the parties would be able to resolve it. We're into the millions of dollars apart in wages. And that's not, I mean, that is an awfully big number. But when you're talking about a 5-year contract and how you allocate the wage increases, the board, and they've acknowledged this publicly and privately with the teachers, year 1 and year 2, so the current school year, the board's tied into the budget for the current school year, and we're already looking at deficit spending. In the next school year, there's a lot of uncertainty with respect to, one, the impact of COVID, not only on the operational needs of the school district, but how it's impacted the economy, including the folks that reside within the school district, but more importantly, how it's impacted the trying to get the correct word, the number of students that are in cyber school. And the school district's paying anywhere from $10,500, $11,000 per student that's in cyber school, up to $20,000 or more for special education students. So we're not sure. We're in the district and the bargaining team are working together to try to determine what's a realistic expectation for the number of students that will return this fall if things return to normal, quote unquote. So all of those factors come in. Although the parties are millions of dollars apart on the wages, we believe that if we could get the first 2 years in a range that the board could afford, that it would enable the board and the teachers to hopefully close the gap and get the the third, the fourth, and potentially a fifth year wage package put together. Because in those out years, the board anticipates that it's going to return to more normalized operations, more normalized revenue, and that would enable them to afford much more than they can afford this year and next year. And that should come off my time and not Julia's time.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying all of that, and thank you for working with the teachers. And I just wanted to reiterate how much we support the teachers, and I appreciate them so much, especially special education teachers are working triple time right now with COVID, and then doing comp ed from COVID closure, and then coming up with IEPs on top of their everyday workload. So thank you, everybody, for all your hard work.
Thank you for your comments this evening. I think Anthony, you want to.
Yeah, Julie, I was gonna make just one comment on that. Just being in all the negotiations, whatever, we run dozens and dozens of scenarios every time we go back and forth on a different portion of the negotiation. And no matter what we do, every dollar we have is accounted for somewhere. So, and I can't say directly where everything goes because every time we run a scenario, it's different. But when we're looking at what the district has to afford, we're looking at every dollar we have and where it's going to be put. So it all goes somewhere, to answer your question in a very large picture manner. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Anthony. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Anyone else for public comment that hasn't spoken yet? Sorry, Greg. Anyone else for public comment that hasn't spoken? Jeff Maple, I think.
Yes,
If you just say your name and address, and then.
sure thing. Jeff Maple, 213 Ashton Court, Mars 16046.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Couple months ago, I visited the school board meeting. I don't attend all your meetings, but I just raised the concern of the tech ed program in the high school and the staff being reduced by half. And I was just wondering, and I apologize again if you've spoken about this at other meetings that I wasn't at, but I just wonder if there was a plan to replace these STEAM teachers that were that left and were not replaced, if there's a plan in place for that.
I can speak a little bit. I arrived, my understanding is folks weren't replaced, but the specific offerings continued. So it was more of a reshuffling. I was a former high school principal. I did that many years. I did take a look at the schedule, and I think it's a matter of, obviously, if money grew on trees, you can, staff a lot of things differently. But as long as we maintain those offerings and perhaps take a stronger look at the types of offerings that are there, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to misstep here, but I believe some of the things in the past, some of those courses were undersubscribed to the point they were not meeting the thresholds to run. So prior to me arriving, the decision was made to, not necessarily replace, but to reallocate the teachers in another manner, and maybe their caseloads and class sizes would remain. But I'm not aware of any courses or offerings that were cut in that process. But
I would agree to that. It's just more like a reshuffling of the students. I don't know exactly how many courses are offered. I don't have that information privy to me right here at this moment, but only 2 teachers can teach so many sections. So
I had a very brief opportunity, thanks to Mr. Graff and the association. I was able to travel around the schools and meet with pockets of teachers. And I talked to the tech ed teacher at the high school who was very passionate about what he's doing. As a former member of workforce development, I think the key to that department certainly is like pre-engineering design type concepts. Get a little bit away from the traditional and more into the engineering the robotics, the higher science and math, to attract those students. Only time will tell. I don't believe anything's been cut as far as the offerings, but obviously if you get shuffled as a teacher, that's a whole new learning curve. I heard that in that meeting. So you will be supportive. And obviously if there's a point in time, I think it's my job to do that. If there's a point in time where there are key critical courses that can't run and courses need to be cut, then obviously that'll take a look. So we are looking at a little bit of a reshuffle, but not cutting offerings.
I understand. I would just leave you with just please don't. I mean, I teach in a high school myself, 23 years, and even though a course is offered, it doesn't mean that one particular semester we could choose not to offer it because we don't have enough teachers or staff to teach it, or the reason of only 12 students per class instead of 15 to meet the minimum. I'm just afraid that type of situation may happen. And as my son gets older, who's only a freshman now, I'm just a little reserved on the higher end STEAM courses being offered rather than just the introductory.
Understood. And I couldn't agree more. I think if you're going off for the introductory, you have to get into the higher level, the analysis, evaluating, creating, the higher order thinking. So we'll continue to take a look at that. I won't be an excuse. I won't use an excuse being new. I'm glad to see the actual courses were cut, which is a great thing. And I know Ms. Roswell at the high school, she and I have lots of discussions about that, and she certainly do her best to schedule. As a former person who scheduled, it's not always easy. So it is a hot spot. I know it. It continues to be raised, so we'll keep our eyes on that.
Okay, thanks. And if you need any assistance with any of that regarding Sloppy, I'd be happy to help.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
One comment to add to that, Lindsay Roswell did come and present at a previous board meeting additional courses and upgrades to the curriculum at the high school. And one of the classes, Jeff, that's being offered is a Python 1 and a Python 2 class. Those are new for this coming school year. So I just want to, reinforce Dr. Gross's comment that we're looking at continuing to reinvest and expand those offerings, particularly for upper level students, since that is a major area for employment for the students that are coming through the district.
Sure, and thank you for that. I think I did come in and outline that presentation on that particular evening. I was happy to hear they're offering new courses, but then I went back to, okay, well, how is, with only 2 teachers, who's going to be able to teach those new courses without cutting the original courses, if that makes sense. So I think we're all on the same page, and I just thank you for all your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Anyone else wants to do public comment this evening? All right, so that'll wrap up the first period of public comment. I appreciate everyone calling in tonight. Moving on to the main agenda. I did have a quick question. Did we post the addendum?
I think so. Right? Is there an addendum posted? Should be. We had a late change, folks. We tried to get rid of all the personnel last week, but we did have a late personnel issue. I believe the addendum is posted. Yes, and it's only one item, and we're sorry to lose this person. She's a tremendous asset. I know Travis would say the same, but that's the only.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's posted because it came to us
Yes, very, very late. Very late.
Driving.
Yep.
So on to the main agenda then. Can I get a first and a second to approve the minutes from December 1st? Looks like the organization meeting. December 1st, regular meeting. December 17th. January 5th, and January 12th.
Kevin, second.
So a first and a second, any board discussion?
This is Megan. I just like to note again that I would love to see these meetings recorded and posted online. That the meeting minutes don't necessarily bring out everyone's comments. Or in the day and age of social media, that we speak for ourselves.
Thank you, Megan. Any other board comments?
I would like to thank Judy for stepping in, and she is Dr. Gross's new secretary who stepped in and had to learn the minutes and go back multiple months and sort of learn what they call it, OJT, right, on the job training, and she did a masterful job in the day of virtual meetings and masks and everything else, and we thank her for her patience and her commitment to getting it right.
I was second that. There was a lot of minutes there.
Very thorough, yeah. A lot of minutes, and it's gotta be very tough
We
to
should call
capture.
them hours, because they're not minutes.
I'll also ask thank you to the public for their patience and us getting them out to them. You know, it's not for lack of effort. Yes, thank you. Everybody.
Little bit of a transition time, but we're happy, Judy, you're doing great, thank you.
So the first and the second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That carries. So under personnel, under addendum number one, can I have a first and a second?
Mrs. Dale, so moved. Steen, second.
So I have a first and a second. Is there any board discussion?
Thank you, Gina, for your service.
I have a first and a second, all in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. Under finance on the main agenda, number 1 through 9.
So moved.
Anthony, second.
So I have a first and a second. Any board comments or questions? Seeing none, under finance 1 through 9, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So that carries. Under policy, can I get a motion to table policy number 1 under policy?
Mrs. Megan, so moved.
Kevin, second.
Board discussion?
Good call.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gross, for bringing us.
You know, I apologize everyone for the confusion. The intent is to change nothing procedurally. It's just more of a protectionary language, so we'll fix it. Thank you.
So I have a first and a second to table, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That carries. Under buildings and grounds, number 1 and number 2. First and second.
So
Anthony
moved.
first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Anthony.
Anthony first.
Dale, second.
So I have a first and a second. Board discussion?
Well, there's a major realignment project going on with State Route 228 that's going to impact district properties and also widening of 3 Degree Road. So these are services necessary to evaluate some of the things that PennDOT's doing and do some design work. And PennDOT's going to need easements and property for that widening, and that's the reason for the appraisal services.
Any other board discussion? Seeing none, so under buildings and grounds, number 1 and 2, I have first and second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That carries. The main agenda under other, number 1 through 6.
Megan, so moved.
Steen, second.
So I have a first and a second. Board discussion? So I have a first and second under other. No board discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So that'll carry. So that completes the agenda, unless I missed something. We're on to board, public comment. So this time we'll allot, another half hour. If needed, we may extend. If you have not spoken already, I prefer someone that has not spoken to go first. Is there any board comment, or excuse me, any public comment at this time?
Brittany Manager.
Brittany? Brittany, if you can unmute and give us her name and address?
Looks like she's
So Brittany may have bowed out. She may come back. Is anybody else want to participate in public comment at this point? I'm invested. We'll jump to Greg and maybe somebody else will decide after Greg. So, Greg, you're back up again.
Thank you. Do I need to state my address again or no?
Yes, if you could, please.
All right, 206 Cups Drive, Valencia, PA 16059. I'm just curious. There's been a change, it seems, in the way minutes are taken, and maybe this is a change with whoever the secretary of the board is. But I've noticed starting this summer, I think a teacher was hired in July, and the minutes now state their total compensation. So it breaks it down to payroll, health care benefits, and everything else. Why is there that change all of a sudden over the past few months? This goes for paraprofessionals and educators, I noticed.
Greg, I think it's fair to say I was new when I got here, and in some districts it's put that way because I know the word transparency is overused in my opinion, but the request from folks is be as transparent as possible. So I know the discussion at our level and the board level was when someone's hired, and because of the budgetary issues and impacts that occur. Obviously, that was pre all this other stuff, but basically, just to be very clear, that not just listing a salary. A lot of districts just list a salary. It shows the total commitment to that individual. I think it was and the board can cut me off if they want, but that's something we realized was happening in other districts, and we sort of thought it was a pretty good idea to be as very clear as we can.
And I couldn't agree more. I hope we do that total commitment for other contracts and services as well. I know, I think at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, by the time it gets to the board and it's on the agenda, it should be public knowledge, whatever you are paying, for instance, a social media consultant, correct?
Sure. Yeah, I would agree.
So I'm fine with that. I completely agree. I just hope that we do this for everything, not just our employees. And for instance, and Dr. Gross, this is nothing personal with you, but when you were hired, and you didn't have any control, they just listed your base salary of $172,000. Could somebody on the board let me know if there's anything more to Dr. Gross's compensation, for instance?
Well, I didn't get a Nike signing bonus. But you know what? I'm not afraid of that at all. That you get that through Right to Know. I'll say openly to the board they can post anything about my salary that they want to.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Dr. Gross. I'm just saying, and again, you had no bearing on that, obviously, Dr. Gross. But the board, something changed here between May of 2020 and July of 2020, and maybe Dr. Gross, you kind of alluded to what it may have been. So. I would encourage the board to be very transparent with everything in terms of money in the future. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Julia's up again. If no one else is new, I'll go ahead and allow Julia to come back on.
Yeah, hi, Julia Konitsky, 2006 Maxwell Lane in Mars. Greg, hi. Greg actually spoke on a lot of what I wanted to say. I always say to the board, or the old board at least, knew that I was on a school board prior to my life now. But I've never seen minutes as with the most little transparency, if that makes sense, as I've had until I came to Mars. A really good district, if you want to copy how they do their stuff, is if you look at Montour School District. It's a comparable size. They have comparable everything. And if you look at how they do their meeting minutes, every little thing is on there from what has happened in that month in the general fund, their cafeteria fund. Everything is listed, and it's so. I mean, you could see what roofing contractor that they paid. And I really think when you have approved billables as presented, approved checks A through Z, it's not. I'm just tired of actually doing right to know requests, and I think a lot of the public that pay attention to what goes on here are tired of right to know requests. These are things that other school districts just have, And I'm glad that we did that with the teachers and their salaries and anybody who's been hired and the coaches we do it with, but really every fund should be that way. How much Montour spent on redoing their turf and security, like things are all listed there. That's a really good one to model if you wanted a template. It shouldn't be that hard. So I would really hope that we can do that in the future as we're talking about, especially the budget and cuts and where the money is going. Everyone always wants to know why we live in the 5th wealthiest district, but we are broke. So where's the money going? And that would help alleviate stress of the public. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Looks like Jennifer Miller's back for round 2 also.
Thank you, Jennifer Miller, 402 Browns Hill Road, Valencia.
Thank you.
Just a question about the possibility of a district-based cyber, and if anyone's, if there's any thought of looking into the cost savings it potentially could have for the district, if that's going to be part of the conversation about LSI with the teachers. Can you just kind of update or give us an idea of if that's on the table at all, or if it's certainly off at this point? Thanks.
Absolutely on the table. We just did a survey. We tried to reach the Mars area cyber and the outside cyber. I think I shared that a little bit last week. But I know Joe Graff sitting here to my left. We've had very open conversation, and I know the teachers and he especially have been extremely excited about trying to start down that path together with us. It is an extensive process. I've done it in 2 other districts. It's not something that can be built overnight, but it's definitely on the table. It's probably one of our top priorities, to be honest with you. One of my top stressors, and I know the board is obviously always asking me, like, when are we going to get this thing started? So definitely on the table. Gentleman to my left, he and his association are willing to work with us together, and we actually talked briefly about it last night on how we can maybe get that started. And I'd like to take credit for the idea, but it was his, so give credit where credit's due. And we're gonna see what we can do and try to create something much more marketable and exciting and rigorous for our students. But again, it won't be in a vacuum and it won't be overnight. It'll take quite a bit of work.
Understandable. Thank you.
You still have some time if you like. All right, thank you for your comment. You were a minute and a half short. Looks like Ruth O'Donnell.
Hi, this is Ruth O'Donnell, 472 Whitetail Meadows Trail, Mars 16046. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'll be honest, was not prepared to raise my hand tonight. Just want to target a few areas. Listening to the solicitor talking about the teacher negotiations, reference was made about Seneca Valley and their teacher salary. Want to kind of look at the activity fees that the Mars School Districts is charging families. I really think that the district needs to look at doing some caps for the families. There have been years where I have paid close to $775 to have students participating in marching band, indoor PMEA activities. And I know our nearby neighbors, they have caps. The teacher's contract, I will echo what Lisa Kumpmiller said. I was extremely disappointed to see the statement that was released last week. Prior to the association being privy to that information, I sat on many negotiations committee, and really that did not look like you guys were negotiating in good faith with the district. Was very happy to see that 12:30 last night or this morning, you guys were there working on a contract. Let's get a deal done. These times for the students, they need to be front and center. The kids have lost out of so much this year, and I understand COVID has affected school districts' funding tremendously, but there's also been some savings as well because of COVID. I still paid my full activity fees for all the events this year, and my children have never been on a bus to go to one competition this entire school year. Was happy to see that the additional sponsors, including PMEA for the high school music teachers, is going to be part of the next contract. For those of you that have been on this board for a while, I have sung Mark Rogers' praises, where that gentleman has spent countless hours with my son, who is now a graduate of the district. And to echo another comment that was made about losing classes, I spoke years past about when teachers retire, specifically in the music department, through attrition, that they're not being replaced. We currently have Mark Rogers teaching grades 7 through 12, and things have been cut. And unfortunately, then he stepped aside as our marching band director, because you can only do so much in so many hours. I truly applaud everyone who's sitting down at the negotiations table. It's not easy to be on either side, but I thank these teachers. As a teacher myself, we have never worked harder in all of our lives, and these teachers, they deserve a fair salary. And I would also like to ask, I don't know if you can answer this, how many steps is the current contract for a teacher to reach max salary? And that would include, are they being frozen on steps? Are you doing a split schedule some years where it takes longer for a teacher to max out his or her salary? I'm not sure if you can answer that at this time.
Might be post, is it posted?
There are 20 steps.
Yeah, there's 20 steps.
20 steps.
No, the 20 steps, are there any like A-B schedules where it takes a teacher beyond 20 years?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
It's,
Yeah, go
you want me to
ahead,
speak to you?
Yeah.
It is a 20, this is Joe Graff. It is a 20-step schedule, but what you'll find is because of some of the past contract negotiations, there are teachers in the district who have been here more than 20 years because of freezes and step freezes that are not yet at the top of the scale. And that is part of the issue, to answer your question. But it is a 20-step schedule.
Okay.
And part of that, yes, and part of that is there, I can't quantify the number of years, but there were a couple of ish years where we had teachers who completely went off step.
Yes.
Right? They wanted to go off step. That was at their request, and then they were off step, and then they asked to come back on step at their request, and they have their reasons for doing that, and that caused some perceived, it wasn't quite as sequential as you would think it would be in terms of equal number of steps equals number of years. Some of that movement on and off the scale impacted some of those decisions, but that was not necessarily a freeze or a financial situation. It was negotiated, and it was at one request. Is that fair, Joe?
Yeah, both things. Yeah, both things are true. Yes,
That's right.
both
They're
things
both
are true. Yep.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone new? Looks like Robert. Robert, if you can unmute.
I'm unmuted and
You don't sound covered.
doesn't look anything like me. This is Amy Nassif at 305 Pinto Place in Mars.
Thank you.
He's just letting me borrow his computer, so. I just wanted to thank our teachers, number one. Some of you may know I've been in the district quite a while. My kids have been here since kindergarten, and we lived here 2 years before that. And they have been amazing. And even though my older daughter had left to pursue a private school, she has actually kept in touch with a lot of her middle school teachers, and they've been supportive of her, and she will be graduating this year. And I just can't say enough about how they've made an impact on her, and then also my daughter that remains in the district in 8th grade. Every time that I've had the opportunity to speak with any of the teachers or interact with them, they definitely bring what's best about Mars out in everything that they do. One of the things that I actually wanted to address was, especially for Dr. Gross, because I hadn't had the opportunity to speak to this since he's been part of the administration, is that something that I spoke about many, many years ago when I started going to board meetings in 2009, is that I was wishing that the board meetings would be recorded and posted as part of the minutes agenda, that people could go back and watch if they didn't have an opportunity to be available on a Tuesday evening, or if they were working or their kids had activities, that they could actually then watch the meeting, recorded back for themselves. I felt that at that time, especially, it would help with transparency, and there wouldn't be any issues with meeting minutes and discrepancies that were happening. So I would actually bring that back again and ask that it be considered that you would possibly try to record and post these meetings, especially now with the improved technology that's available. You're already doing meetings that are virtual, and with Zoom and the technical capabilities, I know that you can record the meeting and it can be posted, and it is public, and according to the Sunshine Act, it can be listed under public viewing. So I would hope that you would consider that moving forward, and that more people can become engaged, and the community could have full transparency with the meetings, and you would also avoid a lot of the discussion offline. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for board comment this evening? Looks like Jen.
Hi, Mr. Kennedy. Hi, Dr. Gross. My name is Jen McAfee. I live at 125 Oak Lane, Mars, Pennsylvania. I have been listening in by phone. I apologize. It took me so long to get my hand raised to make a comment. I was chauffeuring children, which we are all very much familiar with, I'm sure, without a doubt. I was glad to hear tonight that you tabled the recess issue. As a child with a special needs child who had developmental delay, who consistently was penalized and had his recess taken consistently through our kindergarten, I was very, very, very upset, and very upset to find out that it violated his rights on an IEP. That right can be written into an IEP where recess cannot be taken. I was upset that it happened. I would hope that we would look at it, and I understand the need for work to be finished. But I also know that you have a group of very willing parents who are more than able to help their children at night finish homework, and they would probably be very happy to sit down and do something educational with their kids at night, even if it's just a 20-minute color by number, rather than them have their recess taken. The American Pediatrics Association does not recommend it as well. It is not to be seen as punitive. No one knows better, as in this day and age when we are relying on our doctors to save our lives as well as the life of our children with the vaccines we need for COVID. So I would hope that at the end of the day, whenever you look to rework that policy, Dr. Gross, I know you said it's tabled for tonight. I'm happy to see that you will revisit it. Please keep children like my son in mind. He may not work as fast as everyone else, but he doesn't deserve to have his recess taken. And, just because he can't maybe do his math as fast as everyone else with the developmental delay. The second comment I had is on the teacher negotiations. I'm very pleased to hear that you guys, the midnight sessions, very familiar with it. Everybody sitting there on the board knows I'm a teacher. I would like to see a deal get done. I agree with Ms. O'Donnell, who just spoke previously. I think this community will back the teachers, even in this day and age with everything going on. I was pleased a couple board meetings ago to hear the majority of everyone, the tax collector spoke and said that almost all of the taxes had been collected. That was a concern, I know, in the past, whenever it was brought up, whether people would be able to pay their taxes if we raised taxes beyond the maximum limit and all this other stuff. Here's the bottom line. We are one person doing 5 jobs. I work 60 and 70-hour work weeks. I just closed a test that I opened earlier tonight for 2 students who forgot their Chromebooks and their Chromebooks broke on a snow day. And so they needed to take their test today. So I had to unlock my test and allow them to take it from a home computer. Was I working at 4 o'clock when I was done at 2:55? Absolutely. Am I working now as I just came home from chauffeuring my child? Absolutely, as I'm locking the test again, and then I'll go in and grade it. We are all working long hours. We love our kids. We don't get into this profession to become millionaires. No one will ever argue that. 20 steps is a lot of steps. I come from a contract that is not 20 steps. It is less than 20 steps at 17. And I know it takes a lot of money to condense steps. But our teachers are worth it. I've seen it time and time again. Other than the kindergarten teacher that I ran with my youngest son, that was my only issue. Other than that, my kids have had fabulous teachers. I could give you a list of them if you really want them, because they are outstanding educators. Some of them have them right now, as a matter of fact. I'm highly impressed with the teachers my kids have. And my kids have been LSI and never stepped foot into a school building since we left last March. Those teachers have reached out to me, have emailed me, done personal Google or Zoom calls or whatever to make sure my child's completing work. I've had a very good experience with LSI. I look forward to you developing your own cyber program. And I know that my 3 minutes are up, so I don't want to exceed it. I appreciate you calling on me. I hope you all have a very nice evening, and let's get a deal done. Let's pay our teachers what they're owed. Have a nice night.
Thank you for your comment this evening. Anyone else wish to do a public comment this time? Anyone else want to participate in the public comment?
I'm sorry.
I don't want to cut anybody short. So we'll move on to the agenda items, and we're done with the public comment this time. So we'll move on to the association, MAEA. Mr. Graff?
Mrs. Lipke, Nikki was going to speak first. Yep.
Sorry, everybody. I just like inhaled air. It's just choking me.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. The association would like to recognize the teachers, the advisors, cast and crew from Mamma Mia for their incredible dedication and their COVID-friendly performances, even during this time of pandemic. They have truly shown and proven to us with their resilience that the show must go on. As their teachers, we are very proud of you. Teachers, support staff, parents, and of course our students continue to demonstrate that the show must go on as well, as we continue to work tirelessly and through the many changes that occur almost daily. We feel that it is important to educate our students in the best way possible and are so proud of them. Thank you for your time. Mr. Graff would like to speak.
Thank you. Mr. Graff?
Thank you, Mrs. Lipnicki. Just want to thank Dr. Gross. I mean, it is, as mentioned, it has been difficult, and he alluded to meetings that he's having with staff, and there are conversations that are ongoing. He's had very candid conversations with myself throughout the year. He truly does have an open door policy. Sometimes you hear that being thrown around, but anytime I've ever asked him to meet, he's more than willing to come to my classroom. He referenced the high school tech ed department. I know those gentlemen were very happy to meet with him. We're pleased with the discussion that took place. I can also agree, I know Mr. Rogers' name was mentioned about band, and I can agree that he is a good egg. Mr. Kennedy, thank you for the opportunity to speak at the beginning here. Thank you for the extended time also for parents looking to address concerns. And I just want to echo again, I am appreciative of this entire board. I spoke to some of them briefly last night, and I will speak to the rest of them this evening. But I have somewhat of a personal connection with at least 8 or 9 of them. I think I've either taught, coached, or they've been in my classroom, or I've worked with 8 of 9 of the board members, and the exception there would be Miss Lenz, and it's a pleasure to meet you. And Mr. Brett, I'd like to thank him also for his public comments this evening, the positive comments about staff. I know that they are grateful for those words. There was a lot of comment tonight about the cyber school, and I'll echo that with, I'll add to what Dr. Gross was saying about cyber school, that we do have a fantastic staff here. It makes my job very easy to be able to represent people who are more than willing to go above and beyond, not because they want the recognition for it, but they truly believe it is the right thing to do. As it relates to cyber, I can tell anybody that's looking at other options, and there are a lot of great districts around, a lot of great charter schools, and it's not to knock them, but I believe in the teachers in this district, and I am happy to go to bat for them in that sense. In our math department, I love our math department. That there's a disagreement, obviously, in terms of numbers between the association and the district. But I trust our math department. I think we have great people there that are working with our numbers, and I'm sure we will find a resolution. I know Mr. Brett correctly talked about the top step for the masters, but there are 120 different steps in the contract, and that masters at the top is just one of them. And he did correctly look at 10 years, but just so you know, our math people are looking at 30 years and for all 223 members, and there's actually 120 different positions on that salary schedule, as one of the parents did allude to. So, not that I want to get into a math lesson, because as I'm sure my own principal can attest, who's in the room, and Dr. Gross and anybody else that's ever had me for math, that'll probably involve some sort of song and dance that nobody really wants to hear at this point in the evening. But
You're safe with me, Joe.
Dr. Gross did extend the offer for me to sing the national anthem, and he has no idea that I actually would sing the national anthem. But I am very grateful. I do want to say that anytime I've had a personal conversation with anybody in this room, it's been nothing but positive. So while there are disagreements, certainly, and I expect that there will continue to be disagreements to some extent, what I try to focus on is the common ground, and I'm pretty confident that we can find that in the next couple of weeks here. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grant.
We second that motion.
Mr. Dr. Griffin.
Yeah, just to thank Mr. Graff for being here this evening. Didn't know you'd join us all night, but that was awesome. Don't know if you feel the same, but
no, yeah, it's great. You guys need to sing more.
No, but thank you. And I just want to say to the community, despite one issue that's major and looming, I mean, we got a great district. When I came here, I've continued to say we're going to go from good to great, and I'm being very arrogant maybe in saying this. We will. I believe we have all of the structures in place that are needed to do that. We just need a little bit of time, and as we continue to build these relationships in a positive manner, and again, we can agree to disagree here and there, but at the end of the day, we're moving, and we will continue to move. So, despite the little black cloud that some people may be seeing, it will dissipate and it will go away. And we hopefully that will be sooner than later. And I would like to thank 3 administrators with us this evening. Travis Vineyard, our special education director, is with us. Anastasia DiLorenzo, who is the primary center principal, and Mr. Todd Colson, the middle school principal. You're only as good as the people around you. I used to coach. I used to say that. You're only as good as what you got. And you've got a fantastic team. I arrived here this summer. They have also been working tirelessly, not to take anything away from the teachers or other staff members. Certainly that's a given with all the things that they've been asked to do. But more importantly, I can't say enough about the support that I have. These folks are dynamite, fantastic, and I would just want to thank you for coming tonight, but I'll also acknowledge your efforts. I know, for example, Mr. Colson's building shut down, and I think he was a health department consultation expert this week. It is just not easy. So with that being said, we're going to continue to move. I feel very confident, very positive. So we're only as good as what we realize we are. So attitude's everything. We're going to keep moving. And I don't know if they have anything to necessarily say. I don't want to put them on the spot. I don't think so. But I do want to thank you for being here and for all of your efforts. So that's all I have this evening.
Ryan, Administrator, Jeff. We're on the board comments. Any lasting board comments this evening?
I wish that I had had the opportunity to see Mommy. I heard great reviews about it. My kids would have loved it. Somebody in public comment talked about the idea of presentations. And wouldn't that be such a great idea to showcase all the positive things we're doing here? Is to have, whether it's administrators or teachers come in and talk about the awesome stuff that's happening. And I'd also like to give a little idea to that and acknowledge Mrs. Flowers for her amazing work at the high school. My daughter is set to start playing at preschool this week. And with that, be a great presentation to talk about that opportunity for the high school kids. She's truly amazing, and it's one of the things that shows how great Mars is, and that she manages to operate a preschool program while teaching high school students. And not only does she deal with these high school student parents, but she welcomed us crazy preschool moms into her life as well. So thank you. And regardless of where anyone stands on any of these issues, I'm truly happy to hear everyone's concerns. I feel grateful that I live in a community where people want to be involved and they want to understand the decisions that are being made. And really truly fair, because regardless of what we all think is right, because everyone's perspective decides what they think is right, I just feel so lucky to be somewhere where the community, the teachers, everyone just loves our kids. Isn't that such a good thing? Everyone wants to be involved. That's it.
Thank you. Any other board comments?
I've seen Mr. Graff sing several times. And,
All right, let's say it.
I won't get it. I want to tell his own story on that. But, I do love what the Planners Foundation is doing in supporting local businesses. I want to really thank them and supporting a lot of local restaurants in this hard time. Also, while supporting the schools, I think this is a great initiative with using local restaurants. I know they appreciate it quite a bit. And I appreciate the public comment the last 2 weeks. A lot more people involved. Like what Megan said, it's nice to see more people get involved and more people come and ask questions and get right to the source and have that conversation, that discourse here as a group. That's it. And thank you to our teachers again. I mean, it's not a binary subject. You can serve on a negotiations board and still appreciate the teachers. And I said this yesterday, it's not an us versus them. These teachers are my neighbors, they're my friends, they're my their kids and my kids' friends, and they're part of this community. And regardless of where we sit and how we go through these discussions, it's not an us versus them. And that's it. I mean, it doesn't have to be one or the other. So I appreciate all of them and everything they've done. They've done an amazing job through everything we're dealing with this year. So thank you to all, and it's teachers, administrative staff, everybody. Don't want to put it out.
So I was one of the 4 elected board members sitting in the conference room this morning at 12:30 before we finally broke up. And I can tell you, we definitely want to reach an agreement that works for everybody. It has to work for the students, it has to work for the staff, it has to work for the district, it has to work for the community. And so I just ask everybody to not just be focused on one area, but go up to the 40,000 foot level and keep in mind that it's all those groups together that this negotiation has to make sense for. And I'm thrilled, looking forward to being back in that room again Thursday night. And I'm hopeful, as Dr. Gross alluded to, we are going to continue to move this effort forward.
As a board member who was in bed at that time, I appreciate the effort that you guys are putting in. That's 7 hours, a long time. I appreciate both
And these
sides
poor folks have to teach for next time.
You're going through, I get it.
Oh, goodness.
Thank you to the support staff too. They stayed late. They stayed very late during their negotiations too. So certainly don't want to put it to test them. Like the members will work hard on that side also.
But let's not make it a contest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so far 1 a.m., 12:30.
Between the midnight and then the 12:30, quarter to
Yeah.
1, we're not trying to break any records for those of us who are, they're all done. So
Ideas like out of
it's quality, not quantity. That's exactly right. And I just
Well
want to
said.
wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day.
I have one thing I just appreciate Dr. Gross's comment. Dr. Gross, I love the positivity you bring. I know that every one of us and all the teachers and everyone respects the great district that this is. It is a great district. And no one, I don't think anyone's losing sight of that. And I appreciate the positivity you're bringing, and the mindset that we're going to move forward and we're going to continue to move forward in a great way. So thank you for that.
Any other board comments? I will say we do have 5 more scheduled, negotiating, so, we look forward to it.
5.
Yeah, yeah, hopefully we'll get. Can we get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
We're gonna meet after.
I announced that earlier, yes.
Evan, so moved.
Christine, second.
Have a first and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Thank you very much, Mike.
Very nice.